Well, greetings everybody and welcome to a global video. That's right, we still do global videos. It was kind of a lax week for me with last week with just busy at work and looking at global's updates and going like, huh, vision cards. Cool. But dismay aside, today we're going to be talking about what is coming to global this week and whether or not I think it's worth your time. And so let's go through just a few little bits of headlines before we talk about the characters. First off, Frontline is talking about UI improvements, affinity and resonance. It looks like you guys will be getting the affinity and resonance that JP has gotten. So basically, for all acquired units, espers will be initially set to the upper limits, and also for characters. That's really great that that's showing up because, quite frankly, I think that at this point, affinity and resonance should have been gone a long time ago. It's just something that's annoying and it doesn't take too much time relatively, but for some players it's just more of an annoyance, and at this point it's just kind of gone. It's a bygone thing. We don't need it anymore, so get rid of it. And they did, so good news. As for units and upgrades, we're looking at a couple of characters coming to the game this week, as well as looks like Dawnlight, Candyblade, Darkworm Axe are all getting upgraded, as well as Eileen, Moore, and Victoria, which are all limit bursts that have been previously upgraded on JP and pretty much uninteresting. I will say that Rugia and Amnelis getting upgraded are potentially more interesting, but so-so. Alright, limited guild battles, quest and pickup match, Haml. I'm going to pretend I said that name right. Acquisition quest, version upgrade celebrations, and of course, the thing that you all come here for, character talking about. And just for reference sake, I just would like to say I actually do have this character, but as you can see, kind of left her behind because I ended up getting her fairly late. So let's talk about Bronwell. Bronwell is a dark elemental character that kind of showed up in the dark element more towards the end of the dark era. And I'm going to tell you JP's perspective on her because in general, I think she's quite strong when combined with the right characters still. I don't think that she is meta because mostly if dark is hanging on to meta, you're running BB because BB is just more powerful and more utility. He is capable of doing more things that are generally good. You look at Sephiroth, and you're still essentially running Sephiroth because even if he is not necessarily in his prime or as much of it in his prime anymore, Sephiroth is still capable of doing things that are really useful. And then you have the question of, well, are you running Bronwell as a tank or are you running Wrath as a tank? And Wrath is still generally better. But that doesn't mean that Bronwell doesn't have places still to potentially be. As a Great Knight, she brings a new job to the field. She has Paladin, which is good defensive, and Dragoon gives her some piercing style attacks, but not too terribly much. Her Limit Burst does raise own defense penetration rate for 3 turns. Spell damage lowers defense penetration and spirit penetration rate for 3 turns. So basically, she's a brawler. She can deal some damage and take some damage, and that's pretty good. She's also essentially a lower cost character, which is good for low cost. We all know this. You can also destroy any barrier that reduces physical damage and deals M damage to the targets within range. So barrier destruction is actually pretty useful and can be really useful with characters such as Sephiroth. And that's just it. For the most part, for what Dark is currently doing on the JP side, mostly, unless it's cost limited, Dark is just running VV, Wrath, and Sephiroth because it's still just a better overall team. Beautiful Blade, Leela, Sephiroth, and Bronwell can be a thing, as well as Bronwell in combination with a bunch of different characters and for limited time events. For most players, Bronwell is actually a decent investment because she's not super expensive to get. She's a permanent unit, which means that, you have, of course, have shard farming. You can also get things from monthly tickets and whatnot. There's a lot of good reasons why Bronwell is super cheap, and for the dark element just being so every single player friendly, because most of the good dark VCs are readily available. Yeah, she's generally really good for that. But is she going to change anything? Well, not without. She's definitely not going to be extreme meta with how much later she's coming, unless she got significant upgrades for global, which so far from this preview, I'm not seeing that. So let's move to our next talking point, and we'll circle back around to Bronwell in a minute. And next up is Haml, the unyielding steel fist, martial artist, Nightblade sniper. Not too terribly much. Martial artist is Urel's job, which is generally pretty good still. This is just a low-cost fire elemental. This base character, there's no reason not to get this character, max him out, and just kind of use him for different stuff. If you're still having trouble with selection quests, this will be a great unit to basically plow through that nowadays. But other than that, I can't say that there's anything too much remarkable about him, unless, limited cost, making a weird strike team to mess with other people. But that's always fun for some people. So generally, there's not much to say here. Cool, free, fire cost character who's a fist guy. What else do you want to say? It's pretty good. And that leads us to the vision card. This vision card I also have, which I know, it's just like, oh, thanks, Umbra, that's really helpful for me, the viewer. But actually, this VC, I haven't had for too terribly long, but actually do have, I do want to say that I actually have upgraded it, but now I'm going to find out it's still at the bottom, right? Yep, there it is. But I am putting in some effort. I just need 61 more shards, so 61 more days, roughly, to get this finished from my farming. Let's talk about the VC. So, debuff reduction rate up, defense up, and max HP up. Very much a defensive base card. Great swords, daggers, katanas, book equipable main job. So there's a lot that you can do with just Dark Element and Bronwell. You can also potentially use this in the future for ice with characters such as A2, and wherever great swords are particularly relevant with some of the other job types here. This is a more defensive card, but it does protect your tanks. It keeps them, from being debuffed and makes them still strong when your opponent might depend on debuffs. Also getting just defense and HP up, that's something that a lot of characters do like and is more valuable when you have debuff reduction. As for attack up and critical evasion up, not too terribly much to say, but okay, I'll circle around this in a second. But Elsirel and Cyrel get unit attack resistance up, not particularly relevant unless you're a fan of those characters. As for Elsirel, will also get slash attack resistance penetration up, which is generally fine. And last but not least, Cyrel will be getting defense piercing rate up. So it's a little disappointing that this VC doesn't have anything extra for Bronwell, since she is coming so much later. But I guess for Elsie and Cyrel fans, that's really who this VC. But I do want to say, in conclusion about this VC, that the VC is, a non-holo VC, which, because it came out a while ago on the JP side and Global's still catching up on some stuff, it's kind of funny. This is actually kind of nice. As a part of me says that, this is a permanent one. You'll eventually get this somehow in some way, especially if you like doing those NUR VC banners that sometimes pop up. You'll eventually get this VC, so there isn't a terribly big rush. But it being a non-holo VC means that it should have the old guarantee of 10k for it, and just be really easy because you can use stars and everything. Like, from someone who just every VC now is holo and therefore is just way more costly to get and max, I have to say that I kind of miss this bygone era. Oh, wait, you couldn't see that. This bygone era of old VCs that were just cheaper and easier to get and max. So maybe a trip down nostalgia lane, if you can see it, I think this VC is pretty nice. But it is, like Bronwell, as we circle back to the last thing that we need to talk about, Bronwell is just, I think she's good, but she isn't going to be like astounding unless Global has pumped her up with some interesting updates. This feels like a potential pass week, especially with some of the things that are coming out that are much bigger, including the Nier collaboration, as well as Valentine's units are also coming up, which will be cost-effective units too, and we don't know what element. So up to you. I will leave it to you, but I will say I think that Bronwell is not a bad unit, but for certain people. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. See you later.